What's up? Little VK56 update video. Trying to document it as I go. It's been a bit of a process. I was out of town for almost a year straight, so trying to stay local now. But anyway, regardless of the fact, I'm picking up kind of where I left off on the VK swap here. Yeah, a lot has happened, so get right into it. So the engine bay is all ready for the swap. The headers are done. I had to kind of cut a hole here, a little clearance spot for the power steering. She's pretty much ready to drop in. So the car was already supposed to be tuned and running, but my idea of running a crank off the front was just more work than it was really needed. So I ended up having to send my flywheel back to spec clutch, and they put a trigger wheel on it for me. So that took about 2-3 weeks by the time I sent it back and received it. Yeah, about 2-3 weeks. So I'm finally getting around to putting the flywheel on, but that means I had to reattach the crank angle sensor. So that's really the main issue with this, is that it's an automatic engine, never came as a manual. So some guys have done flywheels where they kind of stack a flex plate to get the starter to work, then the trigger wheel, and then they put a flywheel on top of that and kind of sandwich it all together. But I didn't like that idea. I originally wanted to just run a solid billet flywheel with no trigger wheel, which is what I had, but ended up being too much of a pain in the ass. So long story short, trigger wheel's on this aluminum flywheel now, obviously made for the VK56 swap to the CD09. Here's kind of a VQ crank sensor, but you can see how it kind of fits in there. So that is perfect. Anyway, you can see it's gonna get seated in there a bit better, but that's what we needed, if it'll focus. Anyway, trigger wheel's on, flywheel's on. So I finally got around to bolting this up. I actually fit it all up yesterday and then realized that this input shaft, like, it comes with a different throwout bearing. So this one's larger, so you got to change that. And then I'm trying to figure out where this little machined collar went. So I had it all bolt on, and then I come to realize that that actually goes back in there. So they sent me two, being that I had two flywheels. Anyway, so to try to get the factory VK56 one out, this is how small it is. So that sucker was in there, and that was a hell of a time to get this out. So I just welded a piece of HSS and then just kind of back the bolts out. You can see there. So back the bolts out. It did finally break loose. So then I got the other one in. I also had to trim the transmission here to clear the block where the crank angle sensor actually goes on the adapter plate. So a bit more trimming was needed, but yeah, that all fits. So flywheel's on, trigger wheel's on. So now I'm going to install the stage 3 clutch. I didn't want to over clutch the car, so this is good for, I think, about 500 horsepower. So we're going to bolt that on, and then I can get the crank on, which I was waiting, because this was originally going to have a trigger wheel around this, which was really the biggest issue, was trying to get a trigger wheel on the crank. So now that we have that all sorted, bolt the crank on, trigger wheel is on the flywheel, put the clutch on, and yeah, hopefully get this in the car here right away. The headers are also complete, so once I get the clutch and flywheel on, I can kind of drop the engine in. These have to be bolted on while the engine's going in, so it's going to be kind of a 2-stage process. But yeah, a little late to the party, but maybe I can get some seat time on this car this season. Don't think I'll be competitive, being that there's no testing done on this swap, but if if I can get out and do some fun events, that'd be sweet. And then next season, hit her hard with a new drivetrain. I just moved as well, so on top of running the business, basically quitting my other job and then moving, it's been a lot. So engine should be going in the car hopefully today, and maybe we can get it tuned and running here in the next week or so. That'd be ideal. So that's the update, and let's get after it. All right, some very long time later, I'm picking up again where I left off. Sorry for the horrible documenting, but I'm getting to it now. So picking up where I left off. I didn't document a lot of this. The last thing I remember doing was getting the new flywheel put in and then putting the engine back in the car. So that's basically what's happened. Voila, she's in. So gonna be a lot of talking. Can't really show you guys exactly how it all went down because I didn't film it. But moving on from the flywheel and clutch, putting the engine in, I had to put the headers. This one kind of fits in behind the steering shaft, and so I had to put the header kind of in the engine bay here, kind of resting on the subframe. Lower the engine in about halfway, get that side on, and like when I say get that side on, it's not an easy process. Like I had to wiggle it up there, and then even with the way the bolts go on, if you put it all the way on and you hadn't started all the bolts, you have to remove some threads and then wiggle around. It was a bitch. It was not easy. So I'm hoping that that's not something I have to do very often or at all, because it's very time consuming. So got the headers in, was able to lower the engine down. The engine mounts are buried underneath there somewhere. I don't know if I can get through them here. Nah, you can't see them, but they're on there. Everything's bolted up. Oh, you can actually see this one here. There it is. Boop. So yeah, everything's bolted up. I had to modify the driver's side header in the car because it was a little too low for my liking, so that was also fun. But yeah, it's in there. The main thing was getting the mechanical side of this car all done, and then it's all ready now. So need some spark plugs, but I did all the plumbing for the fuel, which was really easy. Just literally one line in, very similar to the VQ, which was also NA, so able to utilize that. What else? The alternator wiring, plug, whatever, that's all done. Coolant temp is done, oil pressure is done. I just put little breathers instead of running a catch can on each head, and then I ran the factory routing for the PCV. So that's kind of more additions using the Titan power steering pump, and like I was saying, I had to trim that tub to actually get it in there, and it's still hella close, but I wanted to leave my tub because if I cut this one off, I might as well cut that one off. I'm kind of OCD with making it look symmetrical. But yeah, engine's in. The nice thing about this is, being that it was a VQ before, all I have to do is add 2 more coils and 2 more injectors, and this thing should fire up. Even as far as the timing sensors, like the crank angle sensor and the cam angle sensors, same plug. You might have to just extend the wires, but it should be very simple. Drive-by wire, we might swap to a VK or VQ throttle body. It's already wired up for it, so yeah. But other than that, intake's on. Just need some fluids, and I have to finish the exhaust still. So it's just going to be a 2-into-1 3-inch. So I've already kind of started running it. I need to merge it into the old exhaust, which exits out the back. Trying to keep this as simple as possible. I just want to drive this car. There's a lot of things I would like to redo, but I just want this thing to run. I don't have a ton of time to be working on this anymore, and I hate it being up on jack stands, just sitting here. So that's the update. I've just been kind of giving her when I get time, so documenting's been horrible. But yeah, it's still a thing and should be running here right away. So I'm gonna finish up the exhaust and have to come along it onto the trailer, which is home built, by the way. I got a little bit of slack on some other people saying it's not this and it's not that. Well, I can assure you that it's something, and it does work, and I've used it a lot. And there she is, still performing just as good as always. But yeah, anyway, that's not it's time to put the car on that trailer and take it to my tuner to get wired up. So finish the exhaust. That's the next hurdle. Then this thing should be on the ground, which will be super sick. But anyway, yeah, exhaust up next. All right, so even a few more days later, finally got back around to finishing up this car here, and the exhaust is done. So yeah, basically that 2 into 1. It's a 3-inch Y pipe, basically. I don't know, merged together into a single exit with a muffler. So it is muffled, but how much, I don't know. It's probably going to be loud. Yeah, just some finishing bits. I did bleed the clutch. Bled the clutch and the brake lines and all the calipers, sorry, because I had to redo all these brake lines. So that's done. I put spark plugs in it. Just in the process of bolting these coils down. I almost mistakenly put a VQ coil in there, which is a very similar thing. I don't know if they're interchangeable or not, but yeah, they do fit. Anyway, yeah, got the V8 ones in there now. What else did I do? I mean, that's pretty much it. Got it on the ground, obviously. Put the body panels back on. Maybe fix the old girl up here eventually, but for now I'm going to run her as you see. I just want to drive this new swap, see how it performs, and then maybe address the bodywork after that. But yeah, gotta put some oil in it. It'll be the first time actually getting fluid in there, so that's always kind of a nerve-wracking thing. It's all custom, so hopefully no leaks. I could fill it up with water as well, but other than that, it's just buttoning everything up before it goes on the trailer, because it's going in the next weekend's coming up, so probably 3-4 days from now it should be at the shop, getting wired up. Rev Performance is going to be doing the initial startup, and obviously the engine harness, which is in that bag there. Just have to add a couple more injectors and a couple coils, and this thing should fire up. But yeah, I'm going to bolt down the coils next, and that's really pretty much it that I can think of. There's not much else I can do here as far as initial startup until it's actually running. So pretty cool to see it on the ground. It's always lower than you imagine. Like, looking down into the engine is kind of a weird thing. Usually I'm standing back, you know, where it's on jack stands, kind of up in the air. So she's tucked in there. It looks pretty cool. Now to stop looking at it and go drive it, because yeah, it's been a lot of work to this point. All in all, pretty stoked with the swap. Obviously I want it to work, but yeah, looks bitchin' in there. So yeah, finish up little odds and ends, and next video should be running, I hope. So yeah, update. 2002, kind of a cool car, little Fox. But that's it. Enjoy the rest of my day here. See you on the next vid.